Hello, thanks Tom and Lockie. So when I researched how to give a good TED talk, there was a suggestion of starting with a joke. I note the previous speakers didn't read those notes. But anyway, this is my joke. Notice any similarities? So this is me at 21 with a very beautiful hairdo. I'm glad you agree. Now, you may question that hairdo, as did my mother, but the one thing she never questioned was the wisdom in undertaking an arts degree. So an appreciation for the arts was the thing that she gave me and my sisters that we'll be forever grateful for. Now, most of us consider the arts to be or include the literary arts, fiction, creative non-fiction, essays, poetry, the performing arts such as dance, theatre, and the visual arts, film, painting, sculpture, mixed media and installation art. And today, in the spirit of moving forward, I'm going to ask one simple question, and that is, who needs the arts anyway? Well, I'm really pleased that you asked that because the answer's really simple. We all need the arts, and no civilised society can move forward without an appreciation of and an engagement with the arts. I hope that by the end of what I've got to say today, you'll agree with me. And soon I'm going to share some thoughts from some of history's finest minds on why engagement with the arts is so crucial to a civilised society. But first, in an attempt to be even-handed, we're going to hear from some of our current, high-profile, internationally renowned public intellectuals on why maybe we shouldn't worry too much about spending any time engaging with the arts or supporting the creatives who make the arts. And we're going to start with this great thinker. This man, Donald Trump, quite possibly the next president of the United States, is so opposed to the arts that he wants to deny student loans to anyone who wants to undertake a liberal arts degree or arts major at an American university. Why? Well, Trump believes that graduates with a liberal arts major or a degree find it harder to get jobs. But what he fails to acknowledge is that according to the 2015 Georgetown University report, graduates who hold a liberal arts degree have a better chance of finding a job than those students graduating with a major in architecture. So Trump is going to limit student loans to graduates or architecture majors, right? Wrong. Because we all know Donald Trump loves his buildings, right? So Trump doesn't think much of the arts, but that's not the same with our high-profile Australian politicians, is it? Well, I'm afraid so. Now, before we go any further, I'd just like to say that my flame red hairdo was long gone by the time Pauline Hanson shot onto the Australian landscape in 1994. She still has hers, but she was copying me. Now, Pauline Hanson is leading the One Nation Party. She's a recently elected Queensland senator, and she has a lot of power in the political climate of Australia. What does she think of the arts? Not much. But how do we know? This is how we know. A bit hard to see from there, but as of yesterday, this was One Nation's arts policy. There's nothing there. It's blank. One Nation thinks so little of the arts, they couldn't even be bothered devising a policy to cover it. All right. Enough of these despotic, demonic and dangerous political leaders throughout history who have no interest in or are actively terrified of the arts. But surely there can't be too many of them throughout history, can there? Well, I'm afraid there are many leaders throughout history who've shown a distaste, for want of a better word, for the arts, and here are just a few. Turns out Kim Jong-il, Mao Zedong and Pol Pot were all afraid of creative thinkers and did their best to rid their populations of the free-thinking, creative and intellectual. But enough of these negative dictators and their disregard for the arts. Let's look at the great world leaders of history and their appreciation of the arts. Oh, right. Here's an exception to the rule. There's always one. It has to be acknowledged that Adolf Hitler actually had an appreciation of the arts, some aspects of the arts, those that served his purpose. He was wild for Wagnerian opera, stately architecture and graphic art and design. But poor Adolf Hitler himself desperately wanted to be an artist. Tragically, his failure to develop an artistic career led to him focusing his creativity on planning for an Aryan race and fighting his way up through Germany's political system to ultimately become the Führer, with the devastating consequences that we know today. But let's take a moment to think about how different things might have been if Adolf Hitler had pursued his love of the arts and become the recognised artist he so longed to be. So what was it about the arts that terrified these leaders? Why did they do their best to rid their population of the creatives and the intellectuals? In short, it's pretty simple. They knew that if the population was allowed to think creatively, use their imagination, then surely the implementation of their questionable ideologies would simply not have been possible. All right, now, we're really going to hear from some of the great leaders and thinkers of history who not only understood the power of creativity and imagination, but chose to actively embrace and celebrate the opportunities that this use of the imagination creates. Outgoing President of the United States, Barack Obama, had this to say: "Cutting the deficit by gutting our investments in innovation and education is like lightening an overloaded aeroplane by removing its engine. It may make you feel like you're flying high at first, but it won't take long before you feel the impact." Albert Einstein, one of history's greatest scientists and mathematicians, studied piano and violin as a child, and as an adult, when he was struggling to think things through, music helped him. When he was really trying to define a scientific theory, he'd strike a few chords on a piano. He'd pick up a violin and play, and that would free up a constructive thought or solution. He stressed the importance of the creative mind by saying this: "I'm enough of an artist to draw freely on my imagination, which I think is more important than knowledge. Knowledge is limited. Imagination encircles the world." Steve Jobs, co-founder of tech giant Apple, loved to talk about the intersection of technology and the humanities, which include the arts. In 2010, while introducing the iPad, this is what he had to say: "It's in Apple's DNA that technology alone is not enough. It's technology married with liberal arts, married with the humanities, that yields the results that make our hearts sing." So you get the idea. A civilised society, one that values the contribution of arts and creativity in building social cohesion, is less violent, happier, and more able to develop, innovate, grow, and move forward. But too often, when we ask the question, why are the arts important, we get an answer like this: "A lot of what artists do is tell stories. They help us make sense of our world and they broaden our experience and understanding. The arts enable us to imagine the unimaginable and connect us to the past, the present and the future, sometimes simultaneously." Blah, 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 blah. That's what it sounds like, right? So whilst I agree with that statement, and I truly do, I think that often we switch off when we hear an answer like that. So here's my really simple rationale for why the arts are important to everyone and why we should feel compelled to engage with the arts. Because it's so much fun. Because we feel good, and we all love to do stuff that makes us feel good. We love to eat chocolate. We love to spend time with our friends. We love talking on the phone, swimming in the ocean, seeing a band. The list goes on. We're genetically wired to seek pleasure and expand our creativity. Letting our imagination run wild is one of the most pleasurable and relaxing things we can do when we're unrestrained by expectations. But the act of doing an artsy thing doesn't have to lead directly to a great invention or an earth-shattering mathematical equation. The great thing is that without even trying to, we're expanding and boosting our brain power. Just as you have a unique fingerprint, every person will experience different pleasure or aversion to an arts experience. There's no right or wrong in listening to a song or looking at a painting or reading a poem. You can even hate it if you like. Many people are afraid that doing the arts takes a long time, that they'll be bored, or that they'll have to appear intellectual to show that they get it, or else you'll be exposed as being ignorant. But let's be clear, you can be the least artistically talented person and still love the arts. As Steve Jobs and Einstein have shown us, they're also the very experiences that can lead to great scientific thinking and invention. But what about science and maths and engineering? I hear you bleat. Aren't they more important than all that faffing about in the arts? More important? I don't think so. As biographer and journalist Walter Isaacson says, science can give us empirical facts and try to tie them together with theories, but it's the humanists and the artists who turn them into narratives with moral, emotional and spiritual meanings. Art gives meaning to the data science provides. So who needs the arts? You need the arts. I need the arts. We all need the arts. Thank you.